Welcome to the fifth annual conference of the Prospective Physical Activity Sitting and Sleep Consortium. I'm Emmanuel Stamatakis. I'm the chair of the leadership group of ProPASS, as we call it. And I would like to say good morning if you're in Europe, good afternoon, good evening if you're in Australia or New Zealand. And thanks very much for staying up until so late or getting up so early if you happen to be anywhere in the Americas. I would like to start this event by paying my respects to one of the most influential scientists, physical activity scientists, Professor Stephen Blair, unfortunately passed away a few days ago. Professor Stephen Blair doesn't need any introductions. He has been a huge influence in the field of physical activity epidemiology. We owe him, to a large extent, we owe him the standing that physical activity field as a scientific discipline has, the inclusion and the standing of physical activity in public health, and many, many other contributions. So I would like to take the opportunity to express my gratitude for the legacy and the inspiration that Stephen Blair has offered to our field. As it is customary with these opening talks of our annual events, I will provide an overview of ProPASS, what it is. I believe that many of you have been to our previous events, but for the benefit of those who are less familiar with our work, I would like to provide an overview of the basic structure, who we are, what we are doing, and then I will set the scene for the 2 days. Our event this year is quite different in a way, and you may have noticed that we switched terminology from accelerometry. Now we're talking about wearables, and there's a good reason behind that. So ProPASS was set up in 2017 as a collaboration aimed at bringing lots of cohorts together, epidemiological prospective studies, to create a data resource, but a lot more than a data resource. So our ultimate scientific goal was to spearhead the way, to lead the way on the transition from questionnaire-based physical activity, central behavior, and sleep guidelines, physical behavioral guidelines, into device-based. So how we aim to do that, we approach and recruit cohorts, both retrospectively, meaning that we include cohorts that already have collected accelerometry data, as well as cohorts that have not collected accelerometry data, and we provide them with protocols, support, and anything they need so that they collect pre-harmonized data. Very, very important for consortia. The pre-harmonization solves many, many problems. We have systems and work streams to harmonize and collaborations to harmonize this data, of course, as it is necessary in the case of any consortium, and following linkage with prospective outcomes. Another quite challenging step in the development of ProPASS, considering how tight the regulatory environment, the data protection environment is becoming, to be able to share a unique resource with the rest of the research community. And we are trying to do this in the most secure way, the most way that's compatible with our times, with the climate, the data sharing climate of our times, which is remote access via a federated infrastructure, which we are building right now as we are speaking. So what is going to be then product? What it is then product of our efforts, because we have already scientifically produced a data resource. It's going to be a data resource which will contain very fine grained, very high resolution information on physical behavior, physical activity, posture, and sleep, prospectively linked with health outcomes, in particular non-communicable disease, cardiovascular disease. Cancer is a new focus of ProPASS. We're placing some very strong efforts to expand in the cancer area in recent years. And we will have and accessed remotely. And this is going to be a resource which will be available to the global research community. Of course, this is one of the many things we're doing. This is not the data resource is one aspect of ProPASS. To be able to do harmonization, to be able to extract very fine-grained information from the devices, we need to do a lot of background work, algorithm development. We are doing all this, and if you stay with us for the couple of days, you will see the range. You will be able to witness firsthand the whole range of ProPASS's work. So at the moment we have, in terms of the cohorts, I'm not going to go through them one by one because we simply have too many. We have engaged with over 20 studies. We have included over 20 studies. Nearly 20 have signed a memorandum of understanding and are at various stages of integration, harmonization, integration, linkage in us. There are, of course, some, the dots here, the numbers correspond to specific studies. In the slide you can see, and we have some areas, some geographic areas around the globe that we haven't expanded yet. So it's very, very important. We're placing huge efforts both on the lower and middle income countries front, but in general, they are in the Americas for various reasons. We have not been able to expand. We have a session on the expansion of ProPASS, geographical expansion, to be more representative of the whole world in a couple of hours, a couple of sessions time from now. So you will be able to see which ones are most recent cohorts, as well as their motives, and there will be also a discussion around the challenges involved in joining ProPASS, the opportunities, and in a couple of our sessions. So an introduction about wearables. So I've already mentioned that we have switched from the terminology from accelerometry to now. This is a space that is moving with tremendous speed on the global front, and I'm not talking about research wearables only. I'm talking about wearables in general. The main reason why we decided to switch the terminology, and perhaps wearables will become the standard terminology in ProPASS in the years to come, is simply because we do not believe that a device with a single accelerometric sensor will be the standard device to be used in cohorts for very long. This is the standard right now. And there are many different types of wearables. Some of them have been used in research. Some of them have been used only in consumer devices. Some of them have not been used at all. They're more conceptual and experimental. But I would like to take the opportunity here to provide a very broad overview of what are wearables and what they are doing in the health area, in the health space in particular. So we have devices that can do diagnosis. There are medical grade devices, wearables that can do diagnosis, monitor vital signs. There are several blood pressure, dedicated blood pressure cuffless wrist monitors, for examples, in the market right now, FDA approved, TGA approved. And the more classical applications of wearables like motivational tools assist the community, people in the community, consumers, to set behavioral goals, improve their sleep, physical activity, sit less. And of course, last but not the least, the function of wearables that are most relevant to ProPASS, which is to observe human behavior, to observe physical activity, posture, and sleep, to be able to record human behavior in the least obtrusive way. And we see now, what we see in the last few years is that the crossover of applications, so consumer wearables are being used for early diagnosis of atrial fibrillation, for example. Apple devices, Fitbit devices have all FDA approval, and we see some very high-profile publications already in that space. So if we were to compare head-to-head research-grade wearables and consumer-grade wearables, I think the very first observation one could make is how technologically advanced are the consumer-grade wearables in comparison with the research-grade wearables. As of 2023, there are still many new cohorts, and to some extent, we recommend such devices for ProPASS cohorts that feature a single triaxial accelerometer. The reasons behind this chasm, this gap, I think they are quite obvious. I'm not going to go into depth. There are commercial reasons, there are scientific reasons relating to how slow the cycle of scientific research is in relation to the cycle of the consumer development product, which does not rely on ethics or external funding. So consumer-grade manufacturers can move very, very fast. But I think that this gap, this very large current gap, won't be there for very long. And we already seen the first signs of that. Last year, a year ago, we saw what I believe is the very first study, epidemiological cohort study, published in a major journal that used consumer-grade wearable Fitbit devices to assess the associations between physical activity parameters, stepping, and long-term prospective outcomes. Now, in research studies, we still measure 1 week and 1 week snapshot of people's physical activity, physical behavior, physical activity centered behavior in sleep. The obvious advantage of using consumer wearables is the length of time. Here we're talking about, in this study, in the Nature Medicine study, median monitor period 4 years. Compare that with 1 week. So there are clear advantages, and I truly believe that in the years to come, we will see more and more and more integration and more applications of consumer wearables and more use in what we call traditional epidemiological research, the kind of research that ProPASS is supporting. So at the very core of the science we're doing is the placement of the wearable, the placement of the accelerometers. And in 2017, when we set up ProPASS, we made a conscious and calculated decision to focus on thigh placement. The reasons were, in a nutshell, were that we thought that thigh placement provides the richest information compared to any other placements, in particular compared to waist, which is kind of the previous generation accelerometry. We made the decision now, as of last year, we made the decision to transition and expand to wrist accelerometry cohorts. And as you can imagine, this will have tremendous implications for the size of ProPASS, for the kind of work we will be able to do, and the depth of the work we will be able to do. More on this on a dedicated session. I won't give you any more spoilers because we have a dedicated session. Tomorrow we kick off the conference with a session on the expansion of ProPASS to wrist accelerometry cohorts and the technicalities and the technical challenges, of course, that come with it. So tomorrow is more dedicated to the future, is more about the future than the present of accelerometry and wearables. So I would encourage you, we have a very strong set of presentations, a keynote from Fitbit, and a very exciting panel discussion at the very end. So please stick around until the end of the event tomorrow. So the next session, before I hand it over to Andy, who will chair the first session, I would like to highlight that we have the next session will be about showcasing some key output from ProPASS. And I would like to take the opportunity to share one of those 3 presentations, Joe's presentation, which is the very first hypothesis-driven, the very first research paper that comes from ProPASS. So this was accepted by the European Heart Journal. We believe that it will be published sometime in the next few weeks. And as you can imagine, this paper certainly will be a very large landmark in the history of ProPASS. It is a cross-sectional paper as it happens, and I think that's very indicative of the horsepower within ProPASS and the potential of this resource we've been building in the last 6 to 7 years with the participation of the very large part of the research community. We're very grateful. Over 100 people have been involved in the development of ProPASS until now. So this paper is a very huge celebration of what ProPASS stands for, how we have been embraced by the research community, and in particular, how we have benefited from providing leadership opportunities to early career people. I would like to highlight here a few. The slide wouldn't be large enough to include each and every ECR who has contributed to ProPASS until now. I would like to take the opportunity to highlight the contributions of some people who joined ProPASS pretty much from inception, 2018-19. Andy Atkin has been masterfully leading the harmonization part of ProPASS. And without Andy's work, perhaps the European Heart Journal publication wouldn't have happened, because we had to harmonize not only the accelerometry data, but the questionnaire data as well. And that was not a small task. In-house postdocs, Joe Blodgett, the first author of the paper and responsible for very, very large number of things within ProPASS, and Dr. Matthew Ahmadi. Joe is based at UCL in London, and Matthew is based with us in Sydney. You will be hearing from both of them today. Vegar has been leading the expansion of ProPASS, as well as contributions that were shorter in time, but also very, very important from Peter Johannes Passan Hati-Rachi from University of Uppsala, who led the development of ActiPass, our software. Borja Del Pozo Cruz, who is assisting, who's supporting also the expansion of ProPASS. He joined a bit more recently. And Sarah Steiner, our new project manager. We're extremely fortunate to have Sarah. She joined in March this year, and she's already making a difference. And last but not the least, I have highlighted Richard Palsford from the University of Exeter. Richard is perhaps the hero of this event. He is the chair of the scientific committee for the conference scientific committee. And I would like to express my gratitude to Richard for the amazing work he's done to set up this event in such a meticulous and thorough way. And I have no doubt that this will be by far our best conference today. So thank you very much for joining us again. Please enjoy the event.